Okay. I don't know. In a way, I kind of like it doing manually, but that's just the old DJ in me. Okay, let's just go ahead and get it up here. One of the reasons it took so long to get on here is because it took forever to get the game to fire up, but also I do my usual conga line of videos to go through and talking about the day's issues. And again, we're going to the rerun crowd right now, so I might as well spout a little bit. A little thing about, the Epstein, one, it's rather convenient that, after the Democrats get their face kicked in from the shutdown fiasco, suddenly it's Epstein. Why is the Epstein? Okay. Biden administration had 4 years sitting on those things. And I'm sealed by court order. Like a court order ever stopped Joe Biden. He defied the Supreme Court direct orders. You think a court order is going to stop him? If he had anything in there that could have, hit, Biden, hit Trump, they would have, they do everything else. 34 felony convictions on bullshit felonies, by the way. All the law for up and down the East Coast. If there was anything in that file, you think for a fucking second they wouldn't have thrown that at him? No. And the email, the email, they redacted the name of the victim there. Well, the name of the victim, it was Victoria Giffrey, and she's dead. No reason to keep it redacted. And she said over and repeatedly, no, Trump was perfectly nice to her. He never did anything to her. He gave her a job at Mar-a-Lago, and that's where Epstein recruited her from. She was working at Mar-a-Lago. But no, Trump never did anything. And also, damn it, the name is lawyer. Like, damn it, why is it evading me? It's right on the edge there. It's like, Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz was Epstein's lawyer. And again, with Epstein now dead, it's like attorney-client privilege goes, dies with it. So he said, no, he asked Epstein directly, do you have anything on Trump? And Epstein, no, he never did anything. They're looking for anything that they could use to save his, Dershowitz is a good lawyer. He's looking up for his client. So looking for anything we could dig up to maybe get you. Nope, sorry, nothing. And the email turns out, it was totally innocuous. And also they'll claim, he spent Thanksgiving in 2017. Pulled it up. CNN themselves reported Trump was at Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving in 2017. By then, guess who was not allowed at Mar-a-Lago? Jeffrey Epstein. So, yeah, nice try. Fuck off. Okay? So there is nothing there. The reason why it's one, it's not just a single big old file. It's a lot of records, and a lot of it has been released. If you're not aware of it, because you're not fucking looking, lots of stuff has been released. Where do you think this email came from? Listen, so far all I've seen is like there was a birthday card, which didn't really say much of anything. But yeah, they knew each other. Epstein knew a lot of people. That was part of his stock and trade, knowing people. So he made a point of knowing. And at the time, Trump was a major mover and shaker. He contributed to both sides. That's why he was able to play the system. He knew how it worked. But once he found out what Epstein was up to, out. He was on the plane. He never flew to the island, by all accounts. And even not everyone who went to the island engaged in the naughty stuff with the underage people. Okay? You know who is being singled in some of these things? Clinton, Obama. Their fingerprints are all over this shit. Okay? You really want to push it, Dems? I think I saw a thing with Jerry Nadler apparently got nailed on something there. the Washington Post has finally rediscovered how to do investigative journalism because they had a little thing released where that Epstein, who's still around, who's already convicted, texting with a congressional. He was the representative from Virgin Islands, so no voting, but she was the delegate there. She was on this oversight committee, texting him during the hearing while they're questioning Cohen. Trump's little turncoat lawyers thought he decided suddenly Trump was evil incarnate. Apparently, it's being fed on C-SPAN. Epstein is texting her, coaching her what to ask this guy as the hearing is going on. They were to match it up with timestamps of who's okay. Yeah. Ask him about this. How about this? Good job. It's please, okay. Now, I think a lot of there's some threat that the reason why Trump is kind of slow walking some of this stuff. One, you got to make sure because a lot of victims here. You don't want them going through this again. So there is a lot to make sure that not revealed about them. So you got to watch that. But also, there's a little bit of strategy going on here. The more they slow walk it, watch the Democrats go totally nuts. We want them to okay, here's the representative out here. Oh, guess what? It names you. It doesn't name Trump. It names this and this and that. You just hung yourself. Congratulations, Democrats. You played yourselves. So that when Curtis Sliwa was in the mayoral election, which he should have won by all rights, but too many smart people have left New York. It's nothing but crazies now. He might want to look at getting out of there because he's been critical of Trump here in the time too. Why do you take him on? He said you do not take on Donald Trump and win. Okay. He's not going to buddy up with him. He's not going to take him on either, okay? Oh, okay. Yeah, unfortunately, we've kind of lost on the it's kind of rough playing as Homer getting shot. But unfortunately, I've had to go to the basic plan here, so I don't know all the bells and whistles, so I can't pull up the chat window on the side. I will have to go back to when Rosetta gets back home, when we start doing the karaoke thing, then we'll get back on the paid thing and get all the bells and whistles. Right now, I'm at bare bones basics here because I don't think I think you might have missed it. Our rent's gone up to about $1,258 because they stopped paying the voucher thing, which I need to get that back. But in a way, it's like, okay, the rent is no longer a moving target. And I'm no longer having to report my income. I can get something, I can start actively pursuing other work to add on to it. I've already reached out to a current thing that's see if I can add some more hours to what I'm already doing with the home healthcare thing. I put in an app with Colorado Public Radio for an audio technician thing. See if that can come in. So right now we're at a let's see if we can keep the tap dance going until July when I can put on my Social Security, and then we will be able to afford this place. Or at least better afford it. What's not helping is that, you just got notice. Yeah, our Snap minutes have been approved for $24 a month. Now, I'm not sure if this is part of the reform thing they did, but I don't know. At least we weren't completely cut off. So it's irritating, but it's like, I'm not going to go riot or threaten to start raid Walmart here because it's my baby. It's a benefit type thing. It's not an obligation type thing. Okay, we're how close we. Let's just get in here and do it. Oh wait, hold on. Let me do it. Let's take a trip to the shop here. See what's new. Yeah, it's like again, I'm part of the thing. What makes you want to do that? I have been doing various audio productions since I was 5 years old with the parents, reel-to-reel tape or playing with a cassette player and stuff. And been really actively pursuing a radio career since I was like 13. Okay. And had enough of a taste of it, like a KGNU and other and going on KVUCR and other, that no, I want it. Yes, there's the Batmobile visible back there. Unfortunately, we're kind of stuck doing that. I've used up all my delays. Here's the small one. Okay. What? Let me go big on this. Yeah, here's a little bitty one that came as one of the bennies. It's not quite the Hot Wheels thing, but a little bigger. But, no, wait, no. This is the Hot Wheels one. It was a little bigger. The one that came with it is somewhat larger. It's in a display case over there. Well, it's about yay big. But yeah, we're kind of committed at that point here. So at this point, yeah, okay, we know where we stand now, and we've got the the money order for the rent for October, so we're only a month behind. And November it'll still be $807, and then starting December it's going to be $1258. So. We are putting in for rental assistance. Hoping for a decent cost of living increase on Steph's check. I think maybe also the being off of the stupid voucher will hopefully mean they'll back off a little bit on the housekeeping thing. Because that was part of it, because the conditions of the voucher were such I had to keep this place looking like June Cleaver lived here, for God's sake. Oh, yeah. That's why I'm here. Okay. So I don't know who this guy is. We don't care. Mo is now in the shop. And I'm not. That's his pickaxe. Okay. And. Oh, yeah. This is. Yeah, part of the thing. Mo's always trying to do the flaming Mo. And Lisa's still in it. And that Homer thing, we're back into the head slowly. Bart is still in there for a bit. The car has gone. And again, it's all, item shop though, so it'll be back. Everything will be back. So we're getting, going on through here. So this is the Thanksgiving stuff. Now, by some miracle, this channel takes off. And suddenly, okay, now we can actually live. We can get a house of our own and breathe. And then it's like the big luxury item in that case will be an actual Batmobile. You're getting a hold of Fiberglass Fantasies, that's the name of the company. Hopefully they'll still be in business here and doing this thing, because the guy's trying to retire. Actually, he's done his bit for Gotham City. But get one of those Batmobiles and do other thing where it's like, I want it street legal. Okay. One of the things is like, because the car as is not really street legal. You need windshield wipers of some sort, and you need side view mirrors. Now I'm thinking, rather than stick on a couple of side view mirrors, which some people have done, do it like a fighter jet, because the way fighter jets do, they have rear view mirrors, but they're mounted up on the canopy. Like you've got the canopy loop up here, and you got little mirrors up on there and the sides. If we could get that to work, and then a rear view camera, like a backup camera, that would be car that big, you'd need one regardless. Because God knows you got the space for the gadgetry. It would fit perfectly. Let's go ahead and get in there. Yeah, because I've been a member of his thing. I did the the little been a member of Soso, but said send a message, but I can't get a message attached to it, which is rather irritating. Campia, I have lost all respect for, frankly, because he turned into an idiot. And well, and again, tomorrow night we got the Knights of the Anime Table channel. We're building, and the channel is slowly growing. I'm up to 1395 in subs here. It's like, it is excruciatingly slow growth, but it's steady and it's and it's fairly solid. Let me pull it over. Yeah, 1395. And again, YouTube does its little bumps here and there, but the floor is getting higher and higher. So. I can't get over there. Bring up the thing. Yeah, I wonder if Campy has already been replaced by AI. So. Now, I've been badgering Rob Burnett to do a stream, and he said we got to stream together sometime. But like, well, last time it's like he doesn't even have time to do his own streams at the time. So it's like, no, one of these days though, I want to get him and Rosette, and we will just do a raging Trek rant, ongoing. Here we go. Oh, you weasel! Hey, when it does this, this is my chance to do a like the button. All right, let's. I'm figuring this will be the first round glitch thing. So. Nope, not going there. All right, so we're. Yeah, of course. Come on. Die, you. I'll take that before somebody else gets around and hurts or something. All right. Are you in the warehouses? Yeah. There's usually good gear here. Okay. Come on, throw it already. All right. Yeah, come on. All right. The problem when one hand is slightly numb. There we go. Okay. At this stage, I would prefer to get my heels. Damn it. God. Hand is not working right. Do some slurp barrels or something. I don't want it to burn up. I don't want to burn a first aid kit this early. So let's pull on up to KBBL Radio, Springfield. You're home for a total inanity. Okay, actually, now we can. Now we can be replaced immediately. Yeah. Has somebody already? No. Okay. By some chance, are the dog guards around? Doesn't really look like it. There's the cartoon storm. Yeah. Let's get back up to the Bat Jeep. That was strangely appropriate. Come on. Next door. Duplexes. All right. Collect a beverage. Upstairs. Upstairs. There we go. Actually, wait a minute. There we go. Ooh. Mr. Blasty. Okay. All right. And real quick as the storm is moving in. Donut storm is moving in. I want to get the hell out of here and get moving. Whereas now the fun begins. Speaking of Batmobiles. Up. Learn to aim. Okay. Of course. Okay. Whoa. Whoa! Shit! That hurt. Damn it. That's the damn Batmobile. Weasel. Okay. Now, that's one thing actually when, like, season 2 map, the chapter 2 map, the radio station there, this is exactly what you had a radio station. You got your, there's your reception there, there's your studio, the production stuff up and down, and up here's the transmitter stuff. They do not skimp on the architecture in this game. And the stuff they've done, and this, the KBB, that's they're missing a lot as far as that's really rinky-dink. But when OG finally moves to chapter 2, chapter 2. Yeah, let's go get that. They bring that station back. Yeah, here we go. All right, now let's look at the quests here. We got one done. Okay, that's easy enough. And I need to catch a fish or somewhere. So let's figure Camp Krusty. Catches a blinky or two. It's a little weird to say because we have a guy on local channel 2, Blinky the Clown. I actually met him after he had an antique store down on South Broadway. But for years it's like he was a fixture on local television, mainly Channel 2. The Blinky the Clown, where they run cartoons, but then do skits in between. And we send him sing happy birthday to you and everything. They started off, it was Blinky the safety clown, trying to urge kids to don't do something stupid, don't play with the matches, but even after it just came Blinky the Clown, it was still at the end of the show. It would kids, mind your moms and dads, and please stay out of those streets. I think there may have been don't play with matches too. All right. Okay, must need to catch a fish. Of course. Excuse me. All right. Put down to make an easy target. There, got a fish. You better not be planning on shooting me, fish. I think Fish Stick just got pissed off then. Let's see if we can get another shield fish if you. Well, that's useful. Go. Okay, I think we fished out this area. Okay, let's dump the bandages here. Whoa. Crouch, little shit. What the hell? Where are you? Let's go ahead and grab that rifle. Okay, we're full up on med kits. Now I gotta find me a vehicle. Okay, we got one up at the plant. least I broke his shield. All right. Hey there, Daniel. All right. Never sticks around. All right. Let's go. Now, between, about 8 months to go before I can put in for my own Social Security, we got Trump dangling this $2,000 dividend check out there. He's settled. $2,000 is the number he's looking for. Yeah, I got the dailies done. So yeah, hopefully we can keep this tap dance going for a while. And be able to keep a roof over our heads. Let's see, still got a couple days before more weekly show up. So we're not going any further with the banana professor there. I'll tell you one skin they kind of missed out on here with this sort of theme is Radioactive Man. And since they're doing sidekicks, Fallout Boy. Doesn't all have to be dogs or animals. I can understand. They're doing Scratchy. I think they're doing Scratchy as a skin coming up, and his sidekick's gonna be Itchy. So
just talking, or
I'm on the stream. I'm while this thing's loading.
Are you playing Fortnite?
Yes, it's part of the operation here. Something mildly entertaining instead of me just monologuing all damn night.
Well, speaking of which,
What?
Have you watched that one video I sent you?
Which one?
AI trailer, fake news, BBC.
Not yet.
Oh God!
I've seen that suggested.
Among the AI faces they show in there are Jeremy, James, and Richard.
That's the thing. With collabs like this, though, the sky's the limit. They can, they can revisit it. Every once in a while, you'll see a new Marvel character show up or a new DC. Okay. Oh, there we go. Bitch! Okay, let it be known that shotgun at very close range can take you out in one shot. Let's just restart that. Okay, so the stacks also count. Need to see how much they do. But okay. Now, hopefully before too long, I can get the paper, if they have another sale. If they do a special, then yeah, that's because right now it's no, for $50 a month, though, that's a bit much. Yes, they keep adding stuff, periodically, but it's like, come on. Do you really need to charge $50 a month for this stuff? Because the impetus really is to maybe, start, learning how to work my OBS thing. What do we got here? Buzz Cola. I should pay a visit to the comic book shop, really. Gonna be doing his Batman. I should drop in on the android's dungeon, okay? Just imagine if the guy was there. This day ever. No, it's Moe's. There we go. Next door. The heck is that? The formidable Mulk. Okay. What the hell is a Mulk? I'll take that. Did you really want to bust down that wall? Yeah. All right. God damn it. Ow. Give me that. Too bad the mirror doesn't quite work. Not going to do the squishy. That's it. Walk into the rifle butt. Yeah. Make that headshot so easy it's ridiculous. Okay. What the heck? Okay. That could be interesting. Need to search him out, Moe's till twice. All right. There you are. What am I missing here? Oh, there you go. You need to look up once in a while. All right. Yes, the bastards have taken the head of the statue again. All right. Uncommon. Okay. That's rare. I need to find something green. Hi there. I think we need to find two of them. Do we got a chest up there? Yes, we do. Oh dear. All right. Warp. All right. Go around. Okay. Oh wait. Place that. Ooh, better. Haven't tried one of those yet. Damn it! Out of the ground. Up on the damn fence. Motherfucker. Quit shooting at me. I'm trying to get out of there. There we go. Whoop, almost. asshole. You blew up my Batmobile. Ow, motherfucker. God. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I made a point of getting it. I would have preferred if they'd done the 66 Batmobile, but hey, I'll take the 89. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get back to the lobby. So, I think we gotta do up one more before we get anything. No, I've got the 66 series on DVD, Blu-ray. Blu-ray? Well, I got it on DVD. On something. It's on home. It's on physical medium. Yep, I do. Okay. Okay, that just leaves Peels again, and then Evil Homer. And that for almost an hour. And actually, let's go take care of a couple things with Homer there. So. Switch to Batman because I was getting a little irritated there. Okay, that really doesn't. There we go.
I am evil Homer. 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 I am evil Homer.
Yeah, Burt Ward is like the years have taken their toll.
I am evil Homer. I am evil Homer.
Actually, better get it. And actually, found out recently the Batmobile that did all the touring around, that wasn't the number one. So the number one stayed back in LA at Barris's shop. Okay, that was most likely the number 4. That labels out the wazoo and everything else, but they did make a few copies because it's part of production. One breaks down, they're not going to wait for you to get another one out there now. And that's just part because the original car handled like shit. Okay, it was a concept car; it wasn't meant to be driven anywhere. Okay, it's like it had rudimentary brakes and steering. It's just enough to get it from the trailer to the stage at the auto show where they sanded off with a pretty girl in the swimsuit. Now, this is what Ford has planned for 1956. And yes, I want to use it. Again, they sold it to Barris for $1. Okay? And I'm pretty sure I have seen the bill of sale. Okay, it was sold from Ford Motor Company for $1. What? Well, I'm in the lobby, so hold on. What do you need? Let's get out of that for a second. Because I need to do something for stuff here. So let me pull up a video here. Again, the only opportunity I got here to do any cross promotion for this bad boy. I mean, especially truncated since I can only stream on one thing at a time, and I'm doing tonight on YouTube. So weird, and I'm not going to do the indie stuff. I need to segregate this stuff somewhere. I got too much stuff clumping up here. But tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let's give the old standby. Bring up the first of my history of Star Trek. The inspiration is Simon Schama's A History of Britain. We just relates anecdotes, really, not really. In terms, it's starts off with talking about oh, bro says hi. Okay, bro. Yeah, he's in the chat. He's the only one in the chat. Yeah, hold on. Let me pull this up here, and I'll be back in a bit here. Okay. For some reason, the first two segments of this series disappeared into the ether. I don't know what happened. I can't find my versions of it. We'll just start over here. Okay, so we're going to talk the origins of Star Trek. They really go back to well before 1964, before Roddenberry became a writer at all. It was like we need to go back really to his childhood. And a bit of a sickly kid. Wasn't the biggest best. He asthma, eyes didn't work right and stuff. He wasn't a very pretty sight, as you know in his own description. But he found refuge in comics and science fiction stories. So, and I got him through a bunch of stuff. His parents didn't understand him because this, he was born in El Paso, but they moved to Los Angeles when he was very little. So, how much connection he felt to Texas, I don't know. But he would, play around in his own mind. I don't know, because he did have other siblings. He had a younger brother, Robert, and I think he had maybe a sister too. But for a while, it's like he would play with himself. Again, in a clean family sense, it was like he was just, entertaining himself. There's one point he tells a story where he was pretending to be, the captain, pilot of a ship or something. He had a second, in a soapbox. And another soapbox pulled on top of him, so it was an enclosed vessel. And as he's going along, piloting in the cosmos, you can hear his parents outside wondering if last year's asthma resulted in this year's brain damage. And another one where he's supposedly helping the father clean up the garage, where actually the father's cleaning, and he's there facing the firing squad. Bow jest or something. He's like, the Bowman, bullets spun him to the ground. He's there bravely dying. He looks up and sees his dad, kind of like, okay, it's some new kind of seizure I need to know about. That sort of thing. That's the kind of kid he was. And going through, but at one point he was, some teacher accused him of doing something or messing up something. He didn't do it. But it was easier to just cop to it so he can get on with his life type of thing. So that kind of built in a arm's distance relationship with the truth. It kind of, if an easy lie gets you out of a mess, go with the easy lie and get on with your life. Let them worry about it. So that comes in later in life when he's having to deal with people, especially in Hollywood. It actually became a useful skill. But he gets adolescence, and actually the body really did a bit of a miracle of puberty. He grew stronger than normal, and asthma is actually able to be the athlete he dreamt of. But then also, science fiction again kind of came to the rescue. Time how to live your life, exists with these lesser mortals. When he's stronger than everybody else, so like how to not get stupid. And then gets to high school. At one point he was in there was a high school debating society called the Archons. So again, magpie mind, always picking these things and storing them for later use. I think there was something probably way back when. You think I want to write some of these stories. I want to do something like that. So that stuff gets instilled early on. So, graduates high school. Not sure what he did immediately after, but he was in his early 20s when World War II hit. So, like everybody else with red-blooded American kid, and his dad went out to World War I. Well, Gene signed off for World War II. He joined the Army Air Corps. Eventually became a pilot in the B-17 in the Pacific. Won the Distinguished Flying Cross, which is no mean feat. I think there was a couple of incidents where some crewmen got bad. He was cleared of all things. It wasn't his fault. Got back to the States. And like a lot of pilots, transferred that career into flying for, civilian airlines. In case it was Pan American. And it was during this time when he was deadheading. It was basically when he's just hitching a ride. He's not part of the crew. But one of the benefits of being being an employee is you get to hitch rides on planes that happen to be going your way. So he's in the back on this plane. He's going, it's over Syria when it goes down. The flight crew's killed. So they kind of nose in. And suddenly he's in command here of this, of the situation here. And he's got to, shepherd all these survivors across the desert. And this is, late 40s or so. And he's got, he's injured himself. He's got some broken ribs. He didn't come through totally unscathed, but he's having to negotiate with local Bedouin chieftains. No, don't get him everyone to safety. And it was in the, it was quite, written up. Everything, he came out legitimately as a hero. But that kind of like, enough with flying. It's like, regularly when he was on flying somewhere, he slamming them down. I was like, "What, you're afraid of flying?" No, I used to fly when these things. I know what happens. So if one person had a legitimate reason to get drunk on the flight, it's Gene. Again, his dad was an LA cop, I think, so it was like parlaying that too. Hey, my dad was a cop. I want to be one too. So he got into that. And again, I think there's still this thing of you wanted to be a writer, and to be a good writer, you got to rack up some life experience of some sort, either yourself, either your own, or get hooked up with people who do have it, so you can learn from them. Kind of, tell their stories or anything. So he was a motorcycle cop. He worked the the bunco squad. He would get there where you see the worst of humanity. This is L.A. Back in the bad old days, the 40s and 50s type, And after enough of that, in fact, that's where there was an incident where, again, this is where he's trying to get, start as a writer. They don't want to carry a badge and a gun for the rest of his life. He wants to be a writer, And there's a thing where he's at this one bar where all the top name agents hang out. And it's inside, 50s, dark, the Bada Bing Club, Doors burst open, so you got sunlight streaming in. The big, huge motorcycle cop. Roddenberry's over 6 foot. Just in his stocking. So add on that all the leather jacket and the boots and the gear and the helmet and the mirrored sunglasses. Rides his motorcycle into the entryway there. Gets on the bike and says, Swifty Lazard! Swifty Lazard, one of the top agents in Hollywood ever. Okay? And so, but also, small guy, bald head, huge glasses, Think if anyone remembers, Larry Bud Melman from the old David Letterman days. Picture that kind of character, so no hair. At least by the time I was aware of him. I don't know, he may have hair then, but it was big, beefy motorcycle cop just shouting out your name. It's like the Red Sea part, and there's Swifty all by himself. Everyone else is, boom, boom, walks up, pulls out a big manila envelope. You better read this. Plops it down on the bar, walks up, getting his bike, goes up, and then everyone cries, "What was it?" And then opens it up. It's a script. Do you know that guy? No, but that son of a bitch is going to get read now. To that, so, yeah, that sort of thing. That sort of thing you do because everyone wants to sell a script somewhere. Then the line forms to the left, goes around the block. So it's a very effective way of jumping the line. But Gene gets himself in as speechwriter for Chief Parker at the LAPD. And Chief Parker, arch conservative at the time, something very much law and order and crime, enforce the law and punish these bastards. Very hard nosed guy. And so Gene learned a thing about having to write speeches that would work for this guy, even if he probably diametrically opposed everything in it. You're writing for him, So it's kind of like very learned skill on how to write for others. Don't just write your own point of view. How to come at other points of view, and don't make them look like idiots. And because of it, he became kind of the liaison for shows wanting to do like Dragnet, for instance, or Mr. Highway, the Highway Patrolman, Mr. District Attorney. That's right, where they want to know how does it actually work. Are there some actual cases? Because there's always weird cases come across. Like you're not going to believe this shit. It's like the truth is stranger than fiction. Well, it's again, the whole thing with Dragnet was the stories you're about to the story you're about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. Roddenberry was there with hey, here's a good one. And eventually, it's like, okay, I think I can write my own now, dealing with these guys. And he started doing something under the name Robert Wesley. No, that was a pen name for him. Because moonlighting was rather frowned upon at the LAPD at the time. But he started doing his own stuff. And like I said, some stuff for Mr. District Attorney was a show at the time. Highway Patrol was one. And also, first science fiction script he sold was something, The Secret Defense of 117. It's for like craft theater, one of these anthology things where they show a different story every name. And this is one it had Ricardo Montalban in it. And one day I'm going to dig up what the story is all about and all that. I don't think there's any existing video copies out there. Maybe there are. On that front, I recommend Mission Log Podcast. They're doing the whole thing, genealogy, where they're going through his pre-Star Trek days. And see, kind of put together, see what led to Star Trek. And right now, they're doing a thing, the show he created, actually, that nobody knew about, but he had created a show before the time. But we'll get to that in a minute. But he started selling stuff and started to get a bit of a career, and enough to the point where he felt the company could finally quit the LAPD and become a full-time writer. And he was a very in-demand writer at the time. A lot of Westerns, but he really picked up on the show Have Gun Will Travel. He wrote like 23. He wrote more scripts for that show, like 23 scripts. He would later claim to become the head writer of that show. There was no head writer in that show. That's it. If there was, he probably would have been it, but there was no head writer. He did contribute more episodes to that show than anybody else, though. It's like 20-some scripts. But let me check here, because this is going to overlap some. Because while he's doing Have Gun Will Travel, let's see, it's 1957 to 1963. And while he's writing this, he did have a show of his picked up called Wrangler, 1960. It was kind of a mid-season thing. It wasn't necessarily. It didn't. It's like the Ford show, which it's sort of Ford was sponsoring one of the anthology shows, hosted by Tennessee Ernie Ford. Convenient. Well, they were off for the summer, and so they gave Roddenberry this slot of this Western in 1960. I think there was no real guarantee that they were going to be picked up for review, but it's like, let's give you this, see if you can prove yourself. And it started off because he'd already been recognized as a top-notch writer with Have Gun and other story, other strips, other stuff he's done. But this one is a little rougher. It's like, because you couldn't blame a story editor for this one, so it was a little rough here. It's like where Paladin was not a perfect character. outstanding, all these things, they're very knowledgeable and very well read, but he did have, he wasn't perfect, This guy he had there, Pitcairn was the name. The case could be made, this guy was a bit of a Gary Sue. He was perfect in everything. He was more awesome than anyone. And, they're doing this right now in Mission Log Puck because they just came across this stuff. Yeah, there's not much mention on IMDb. They can't even find. They found the script for the pilot, but they haven't found the tape. It was notable in the fact that it was the first Western done on videotape. Now the on-set stuff looks like a soap opera of the time. The outdoors, the location stuff looks fantastic. That's just all on videotape. So they're still going through that, and it'll be interesting to see if some of the stuff starts coming to light. But that was the first created by Gene Roddenberry show, and it was a bit of a big deal because they found the script and it's in a fancy leather binder and everything. And this is while he's still doing stuff for Have Gun Will Travel on the side, though. So, and again, that just lasted like 9-10 weeks, and it's back to the regular year on Have Gun Will Travel. And that ran through, but he picked up from that, and pretty much after Have Gun, that's when he got a second shot with the lieutenant. And for those not on the know, that was the story of a young Lieutenant William T. Rice. And yes, the T stood for Tiberius. It was revealed later on. Just life in the Marines in peacetime. And one of the things is they were able to get cooperation from the Pentagon to use Camp Pendleton as a location. So they didn't have to use backlots. They could use actual Marines marching in formation behind them. It saved a lot of money, a lot of time, and everything. And apparently it was a very well-regarded show, doing okay in the ratings. But it was kind of, they dealt with certain issues. They dealt with, people not understanding the Marine Corps type of thing or trying to use it for their own ends. I think the one story that, when he first met Leonard Nimoy, he'd been as a guest star, as a flamboyant Hollywood producer, wanted to do a movie about the Marine Corps. And and Rice is listed kind of as a technical advisor. Say, no, that's not how this worked. It would do this way. But Major Barrett was also in there as Nimoy's assistant. Although Major was there a lot more than just as that, because that comes up later with Star Trek. But they came to an episode called "To Set It Right," and this one was a bit thorny, mainly because it revolves around two Marines, Don Marshall, black recruit, and Dennis Hopper. Been around, I think he's a corporal by this point in the story. And it starts off, he's introduced, okay, there's, these are guys, these are your corporals. Well, there's some history between the black Marines and Dennis Hopper, because he immediately jumps him right there in front of the squad room and everything, or the office. And Rice sets himself the mission. He's going to get these men to respect each other and behave. Now, he does get called on it because his Colonel Bainbridge, played by Robert Vaughn, and kind of calls on him about, you're wanting to do your little, social work here. This is on you, Lieutenant. This goes bad. Okay, we're not here for this sort of thing. It's like it'd be simpler just to transfer him to somewhere else or whatever. But Nichelle Nichols also this is her television debut, because the credits say introducing Nichelle Nichols, and she's playing his wife, or this guy's wife, and they shoot it, and then they get a word from the Pentagon saying, if you air this episode, we're pulling support. You will no longer have access to Camp Pendleton. You will not have access to Marine personnel, because they did not like the idea of a story depicting the Marines as having racists in their midst. And it was been in the military. It's like, really, we're going to completely deny reality then, huh? So, and NBC saying, it's like, no, you don't air this. We can't do. We need that support from the Pentagon to keep the cost down on here, and then just maintain good favor with the government. Well, Roddenberry thought this was an important story. It needs to be dealt with. And again, they're not saying the entire Marines, just these two guys. There's one guy problem with. But also, they also point out that The black guy's got a bug up his ass too, because he gets jumped up by, I think Woody Strode plays, and you think, look, you don't know what we had to go through for you to be here. So cool your jets there, Sparky. You don't have as bad as you think you do. But Gene screened this episode for the NAACP, and they sang it up to the rafters. There's a great, this needs to be aired out, and they kind of embarrassed NBC into airing it. You see various accounts saying, oh, it's so expensive. They never aired it. No, they aired it. They aired it, and they also aired it in summer repeats, too. And the Pentagon followed through. They pulled support. Now, there wasn't much left of the show anyway at that point. Towards the end of the season. But, for the remainders, if they had to, pull everything back, shoot on the back lot. Roddenberry's out there training extras into how to march right. But it was like, it wasn't so much that censorship was a big deal at the time. It was that television goes in cycles. If this had aired just a few years earlier, wouldn't have been any problem, really. Because television was handling weightier subjects at the time. But they were coming out of that, and they figured the people are tired of being preached at and lectured. They want just straight entertainment. So Roddenberry was really a little behind the times at that point. But he also started thinking, because, he was familiar with Jonathan Swift and the way he was able to just skewer institutions like the royal family and Parliament and other things at the time, because he couched it in terms of Lilliputians and Winans and Yahoos and stuff. And it slipped right on by the people he was poking fun at. And actually, before this episode aired, it already hit the trades that Roddenberry was working on a sci-fi show. There was already a blurb in Variety in January, and the episode aired in February. So it was already known he was working on his own show. And it was going to be a sci-fi show. But it went through, and they did the run, and NBC pulled the plug on it. Again, it wasn't the ratings were okay, but Roddenberry made them look like a bunch of racist bigots. And again, we're talking, New York and Hollywood elites, and they still wanted to be as progressive, and they wanted to push these things, but they also got sponsors and such investors that keep happy, so you can't put, it's like, no, don't, Gene, please. But it's like, no, that's it, you're done. And so, Roddenberry, Lieutenant gets canceled. Robert Vaughn goes on to have do Man from U.N.C.L.E., like right afterwards. So Roddenberry starts going and working on his sci-fi idea, which becomes Star Trek. Like the first format was dated March of '64. I'll have to check the air day schedule, but I don't know when the last new episode of Lieutenant aired, but close, maybe a little bit before that. As some accounts, he shot it all over Hollywood in the very short sequence of time. Between the time he had this thing written and the MGM had first dibs, they passed on it, and it's pretty close when it wound up at Desilu. And at this point, Desilu is sitting there with a lot of empty sound stages. Like the only one really in regular use was for the Lucy show. And I think they had a couple of game shows here and there. And they wanted to start getting into more, become a major player. So that they can do more stuff than just Lucy. And so they brought in Herb Solow, who was an NBC exec. Brought him in to say, bring us concept, bring us stuff. And right off the bat, he brings in Mission Impossible and Star Trek. Because Roddenberry comes in, does his pitch, and Solo's there, Herb Katz is there, I think maybe even Gene's agent, and they do it. Okay, yeah, we'll sign you with something here. We'll see what we can do with it. And this was for '64. If that had gone right, it would have premiered alongside Lost in Space. But again, you got the legendary pit where Oscar Katz gets so excited about this. Oh yeah, this is just what we want to do. If it does a show, we can play with the big boys. He personally takes Roddenberry over to CBS. And of course, the story is, they're grilling him. How would you go about doing this type of show? And asking him all kinds of technical stuff about, like reproducing planets and stuff and doing the thing. And Roddenberry thought he was being helpful and helping his case by saying, we can do this and this, And it wasn't until like the end when said, well, yeah, thanks for all that, very interesting, but we decided to go with the show we've already got called Lost in Space. It's like, yeah, basically they had questions about Lost in Space, and Roddenberry gave them a how-to guide of how to go about doing it. He felt very used. So it's like, go back. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work. They only had 3 networks at the time, and the feeling was that CBS was the inside shot because Lucy and CBS go back to the radio days, and I Love Lucy was the #1 show for a long time, and the Lucy show was doing pretty well too. So they kind of felt CBS had like first dibs on anything they'd come out with. So Herb, it's like, Oscar, let me handle this. We only got 2 shots left. I don't know anybody at ABC, but I still got buddies at NBC. Let me do this. And told Roddenberry, don't say anything unless directly, just shut up. Let me do the talking. And it's like, so like, just sit there and look pretty. And Herb is the one who, when, and again, all the execs at NBC, Mort, Grant Tinker, Mort Warner, all that, they knew Herb. They knew Herb Solo. They were friends with him. So they said, as in deference to him is why they went in and bought Star Trek, because they didn't want to deal with Roddenberry again after that whole thing with with the lieutenant. So it's kind of like, okay, Herb, you're the one who's going to run herd on him, okay? Because we dealt with him before and it wasn't fun. He doesn't like to play by the rules. And we got to play. If we're going to keep this thing going, we got, So they went through it, okay? And they submitted some scripts for pilots. NBC picked The Cage. And it comes back, and the idea was this was going to be the hardest one that they're going to pull off. If they can pull this off, then they got something. But this will be the toughest one. So I was like, you want to show? Do this one. If you can do this, then we'll talk. And again, it was sold as, kind of a space western, wagon train to the stars. It wasn't referred to being as a wagon train. It was like the show Wagon Train. Because it wasn't just, the fact that recurring characters, but different guest stars every week. It also, this was considered quality television. You'd have big name people guest starring on Wagon Train. Well, they did it, and they delivered the pilot. And no, it wasn't the action adventure shoot 'em up that Gene kind of promised them, but they did pull it off. They made a very compelling story. The production levels were up there, and it was like Mort Warner and Herb Solo had to talk. It's like talking about, well, okay, did we? Yeah, well, we kind of sandbagged you there, Herb. We didn't think we picked the one because it was the hardest one. We didn't think you'd be able to pull it off, but you kind of did. So we're kind of at a quandary here. And Herb said, well, let's just do a second pilot. I said, okay, fine, you got it. That was it. Contrary to the legend, second pilots were not unheard of or unprecedented. It's as old as television itself. Again, trying to turn radio shows into TV shows. There was one that went through like 4 or 5 pilots. Lumber shows went through 2 or 3. Like Fibber McGee and Molly went through like 3. There was a spinoff, The Great Gildersleeve went through a couple. And other ones, like shows that never went anywhere, but still went through a couple of months because they really wanted to make this thing work. One of them shows, like, I forget the title, but it's like he was going to star Vincent Price and Peter Lorre. It's like, that could have been a good show. They tried, and in fact, at the time, they got approved to make make The Where No Man Has Gone Before, do a second pilot for Star Trek. Desilu was making a second pilot of a sitcom idea for NBC. So not only was it not unprecedented, it was a little unusual. But it was not unprecedented, it wasn't unusual, and in fact it was being done at the very same time by the very same studio for the very same network. So frankly, Bob Justman should have known better when he made those unprecedented now, president then, unprecedented now. No, Bob, they were doing the same thing across the lot. And it didn't send shockwaves through the industry. It's a fourth paragraph on a blurb about what's going on in Hollywood. Oh, and by the way, Desilu's doing another Star Trek for NBC, and they're also doing a second pilot for this, for this thing. He was like, yeah, by the way, this is also happening. No one was shocked. It happened all the time. And in fact, it happened quite a bit after Star Trek 2. All in the Family went through like 3 or 4. The Dick Van Dyke Show went through a couple. So, yeah. But it's kind of like, there was a telegram from Oscar Katz to the point, like, hey, good luck. Let's make it good this time. Sort of poking them a little bit there. So, but they got it. And they showed, okay, yeah, we can do the shoot 'em up too, I mean, it wrapped up with Bill Shatner in a fist fight with a god. And they got it and started off. And production started really around June, I think, of 66. Yeah, the first pilot was 64, second pilot 65. And then all the rank, and then, okay, now you got, because part of it is also, they shot the first 2 pilots at another location, at another lot across town. For the regular production, they pulled everything back to the the lot literally next door to Paramount, the main Desilu's lot, the old RKO lot, and that transporting all those sets over there, fixing them up, adding more, and things started. Because September 8th, 1966, that was really a sneak preview week. The official premiere wasn't until the 15th. But this was sneak preview week, and they're going through. And originally, I'm pretty sure, I'm quite confident, neither pilot was really intended to go on air. Because there's so many changes in both of them between that and what happened in the regular show. They're completely different shows, look like. And if things had worked right and there wasn't hold up in getting effects done, the Corbomite maneuver was certainly written to be essentially the third pilot. This was going to be the first episode. Because you can tell by the dialogue, they're setting everything up, all the relationships, and explaining the mission, the ship, and all that. So like this is like, if you know nothing about this, and again, this is going to be the first one, this explains everything. And it ends properly with, instead of blowing the bad guys away, it's like you go out and then make a new friend. But reality was something different. The effects were not ready in time. In fact, the Corbomite maneuver didn't run for several weeks later because it took so damn long to get those effects right. So it's like, the air date's coming close. What do you got, guys? Not much. They had The Man Trap, The Naked Time, Enemy Within, Charlie X, and I think Mud's Women. And of those, it's like, Mud's Women, that's a mail order bride story. Charlie X is not that compelling. Enemy Within, that was, you want to really present your leading man, captain in this way? No. Naked Time, you got to kind of know these characters first before you can appreciate what they're going through. That pretty much left The Man Trap. Where you got, okay, well, we got a, creepy monster terrorizing the crew, and it's the closest thing we got to a decent show to lead off with. Okay, so that's why they went with Man Trap, and the reviews were somewhat savage. A lot of people did not get it, which understand. It was a very different show, from what everyone else thinks. Because again, at this point, the only big sci-fi shows on the air at the time was Lost in Space, and it was Irwin Allen stuff. I'm not sure where Time Tunnel was there, but Time Tunnel was in. I think Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was going there, but it was his kind of. It was all action stuff, and very little detail with the plot and characters. So they go, and the ratings were good. They started off pretty damn good. They had a hit on their hands, but they kind of went to the middling area for a while. It was never the ratings disaster of Legend, though. They were mostly kind of mediocre, and it settled around number 50, 52, I think, at the end of the year. But that's just raw numbers, and the demographic thing has also been overplayed. They knew who was watching. They knew it was college students now. I don't think they fully appreciated where the spending power really was. I think they were still thinking it was mostly with housewives. Like they figured they control the spending in the house. I think, no, really, no. Most of the spending actually comes from these guys. So that's that was until 1970 when they figured it out. But they're going along, and again, the rate. A lot of times it was like they won the night frequently, but again, it was not the Bafo ratings they really needed for a show as expensive as that was. And all the thing about low budget. No, it wasn't low budget. It wasn't adequately budgeted for what they needed to do. The thing is, they had to create pretty much everything from scratch. Very little was. They couldn't really go down to Sears and buy Starfleet uniforms. They had to make them themselves. And Bill Tice was not given a lot of money to work with. He was using very unusual fabrics. Partly, again, it's unusual, but also because this stuff was cheap. Okay. It's like some of the stuff, like the environmental suits in Naked Time. That's shower curtain material. Okay. And even went on into the third season with Ilana Troyes. It's like it's pretty clear. The Elasian guards, they've got placemats glued on them. Okay, little cheap, plastic, translucent placemats. They had to do very unusual things. Some of the set decorations, like it was lids for takeout dishes that they went, said, gave a kid $2, go down to the comic shop, get me a sleeve of lids. And there's paint them, put them in a thing. You're not going to dwell on me. I'm going to focus. It's a manufactured shape on the wall, and it works. And stuff like that. And they were also regularly raiding Mission Impossible's dumpsters, because they're literally right next door. And they'd get something come in, and it's like the plastic shipping container, styrofoam shipping packing stuff. It's like they'd toss it. It's like, hey, and they see them stacked up on the walls in engineering. Because that kind of goes to Roddenberry's real genius was not as a writer, but as a producer. He would get some concepts, scripts, middling. It's kind of often, hit or miss. Like Justman would say, a typical Roddenberry script would be brilliant. The teaser, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 starts getting a little weird. And by Act 4, you can kind of tell he's reached about halfway down the bottle of bourbon. And I think the Omega Glory is probably a pretty good example of that. It starts off like a very compelling story. What happened to the crew of the Exeter? What's going on? Captain Tracy, whoa, he's interviewing with what's going on? And then by the time what? Shatner's reading the Constitution? When the hell did this come in? It's, the guy walks in with an American flag. What? That one mainly suffers because there was a bit cut out there. There was a line about we could, this is very possibly, example of one of those lost colony ships from, the 21st century. It was an American and Chinese colony went out and they got like, this could be them. But that would have explained a lot, But they're going along. And originally, Roddenberry was producing the show himself. But it was clear pretty much that, no, this is a very backbreaking show. They need to bring in a regular line producer. And eventually, I think they went through a couple of guys. John D. F. Black, I think, was doing a lot. He was mainly script editor, story editor. And he got pissed at Roddenberry, constantly rewriting stuff all the time. But he understood. He was usually right. But it's like the way he went about it, it's like you're really not, making it really hard to deal with the writers. With the prime example being Harlan Ellison and sitting there forever. Because a lot of writers just they do this job, just take their name off it and use a pseudonym. Harlan was like he was one of the first writers to sign up. He was when Roddenberry showed the pilots at Tricon in '66. Harlan was one of the guests of honor. It's like, hey, sign me up. I want a part of this because they've been claiming, please, intelligent sci-fi and television. Please, enough of these, wisecracking robots and smart-ass kids. In fact, I've got the letter, he sent out from the committee saying, hey, the show's already in trouble. We need to, rally. And Harlan, he was one of the earliest ones. There's elements in there of stuff that they, this later on. like being able to control the transporter from your communicator. But there's some good stuff. And he had Yeoman Rand holding the fort while Kirk and Spock go back down and try to save the day. But he, one of the things is you do not rewrite Harlan Ellison. And when he found out he was being rewritten by somebody else, I mean, he shows up at Roddenberry's office. He, while he's waiting in the outer office, he fashions a hangman's noose, hangs it up just outside the door, so when he opens the door, he's going to see it. So he walks in, there's the noose, he points and says, "Tell me someone didn't touch my words." And so I was like, okay, fine. Hand it back to him. And they ran out of money because the writer, you get paid for the story, then you get paid for the first draft, and then if you do more rewrites, you get paid for that too. Well, they ran out of money to pay him for rewrites. He said, "No, I will do it for free. I will do it gratis. Just let me keep my story." And they went through several drafts. That like this was one of the. If it went smoothly, it would have been one of the first episodes aired. Instead, it was next to the last because it took that long to keep going. They stick him in a closet back behind Bill Theis's wardrobe stuff. The night watchman had come in and finally said he's like sitting there with eyes like a couple of poached eggs, working on the story. But I was like going through, Gene Kuhn took a run at it. Harlan blew a stack. They figured most of the supposedly Roddenberry himself did the final rewrite. But I think a large part of what we saw was from Dorothy Fontana. Roddenberry stuck in stuff, like Edith's little speech about one day we'll be harness great powers, even maybe the Adamant sort of thing. It's like that's not the character. And that then that's stuff a legend Harlan does himself in a book. I could have trade that over there, but talking about what he went through, and a lot of afterwards from people with David Gerald, Dorothy Fontana, and others who dealt with him. And this, if this had been like Outer Limits or Twilight Zone, it probably would have gone unchanged for the most part. But the fact is, we have to live with these characters next week. You're up to something else, and our audience come back. Well, yeah, we just saw Kirk try and dump the entire galaxy and universe over some dame. Why are we going to listen to him anymore? You got to make him a hero. He's got to stand with thing. And Roddenberry's also big. No, we need heroes. Enough of this cynical crap. It's like, the anti-hero. No, we need genuine heroes to look up to. Someone to aspire to be. So going along, the sale of Desilu to Gulf Western. Paramount did not buy Desilu. Paramount was bought along with Desilu by Gulf Western, which is mainly a sugar company. No background in entertainment at all. But it was the thing of the day to buy a movie studio to diversify things. But again, the owner of the thing is very much a type A micromanager type. He's trying to tell these guys how to do their job. Now, Paramount had been around a good deal longer. They knew how to defend themselves against these guys, and they were convinced, no, we have to do it this way. This is how it works. Okay. Desilu, not so much. They got pushed around a bunch. I think they also, I think Gulf West probably put their own people in it too. And also, by the time of the merger, Desilu was not going under. It was the most profitable year in decades. They made more money the year they sold the Gulf West than they made previously, God knows how long. So no, Star Trek did not break the studio. They were not going under. They weren't going bankrupt. There wasn't this like, we got to sell. What's going to kill us? No, they were making money. There's one just Lucy was just getting a little burned out from trying to run a studio. It's like, don't let me out of this. Let me just do my show. You can run the thing. I'm had it with these guys. But they made the syndication deal with Kaiser during the second season. I think the head of Kaiser Broadcasting, he had missed out on getting the deal for the Twilight Zone. His kids were nuts by him, but he tried to get, but he was too late. So he was damn sure he's going to get Star Trek, and so that got signed up. He nailed that down, but it's like, well, this puts a thing when the third season's going along. Like, they've already got the syndication deal set up. So there's a lot of, they're just going through the motions at this point. They don't want to spend any more money than they have to because they're not trying to win anymore. They know this third year, that's it. We're going to, set it in reruns and it's a pure profit at that point. So there wasn't much interest from the studio's perspective of trying to build the show up anymore. We're done. You just run it out, move on to something else, strike the sets, move on to somebody else. So that's kind of plays in the thing of the network. Again, they did promise originally that third season the show was going to air Monday nights 7:30. But upon further reflection, they're looking at this and it's like, okay, wait a minute. Monday nights they're going up against Gunsmoke and the Lucy Show. These are top 10 shows, okay? And Star Trek is not in that league at this point. And again, at that point, they were doing something an hour long. They started at the half hour. Nobody's going to leave Gunsmoke halfway through to go watch Star Trek on NBC. And also, as far as the Friday Night Death Slot, that does go back to the time. In the final chapters of the making of Star Trek, they're bemoaning the fact that they're being sent to Friday nights at 10. But look at it from the network's perspective here. If they put it on Monday nights, that was a kamikaze slot. They might not have made it halfway through the season if they'd been up there, because they would have been trashed. And also, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. had been having trouble early in the week and early in the night, so they put it at Friday nights 10, and it shot to number 13. And that wasn't a cheap show either. And it had roughly the same audience as Star Trek. So they're thinking, well, hell, it worked for Uncle. It could probably work for Star Trek. Let's put it down there and see if it finds its audience there. Because again, Friday nights at 10, it's like, because they also knew it was primarily kids watching this show. So late night Friday nights has the advantage. It's not a school night. They can stay up and watch it. So you won't lose your audience that way. College students, well, they're not all going out on dates, okay? Some of them are, lonely nerds who are staying home and they're watching, So it was a calculated risk. And again, not unwarranted. Again, a lot of shows have been in that very time slot and done very well. Again, Man from U.N.C.L.E. just a couple years earlier became a hit in that time slot. But Roddenberry had agreed to come back and produce the show himself, to be the line producer, because they had lost Gene Coon, for reasons we won't go into here. Then he felt in order, because he was going to have to deal with people in the future, he had to stick by his word. He said that if you give the Friday night slot, I won't come back and produce the show. I'll, get somebody else, but I will not produce it. And they wouldn't budge. And I think there was also a factor of NBC preferred dealing with George Schlatter at Laugh-In than with Roddenberry. And again, also, it makes a little more sense. Don't try and counter one action-adventure show with another action-adventure show. You're splitting your audience that way at best. You go with a slapstick vaudeville-type comedy like Laugh-In, you're not pulling the same people. So you can find your own audience in there, people who don't want to watch, James Arness riding into town one more time. But watch a comedy, then, okay, yeah. And it found its thing. They worked. Although Roddenberry, that Inside Star Trek album, did, if you had to do it over again, he probably would actually come back and do it. Considering that what Fred Freiberger and his bunch did to the show, it's like their way was not the same way as and they didn't do the same thing. There were a lot of things that didn't work right. And again, at that point, it would have been irrelevant though, because the show was the fate of the show was pretty much set in stone. Unless they really did take off, which I think they would have had a chance to if they'd maintained the quality. They probably would have maintained, but the thing is, with Roddenberry stepping aside, Freiberger doing his best, but a bit ham-fisted, the quality started dropping, and the fans picked up on it eventually. It's like, this show really kind of sucks now. The ratings finally take a nosedive. Till finally it was like an 8. An 8 rating, whereas previously it had been over a 16 when they started. No, they would kill for an 8, but but it pretty much just, okay, that's it, wrap up, we're done. And let it, some other rerun contracts run out for a while before Kaiser gets in, and then 72 or so, they start running. Or 73, because I know, for, and I was catching repeats on Channel 9 in Saturday afternoons. And Channel 9 was an ABC station, so it's like they were just shuffling around. They didn't start, I mean, the big rerun push didn't start really until like 74. Because in between time, they had been dealing with, talking to Filmation about a cartoon version of Star Trek, even back during, say, on third season. Because they've been doing shows like that at the time. But at that point, they was talking about stuff like little kid versions alongside the adult version. It's like, it was a kind of, cadets on the Enterprise type of thing. And Roddenberry didn't really go for that. So that one went nowhere. The development stuff is out there. But it just never went anywhere. So there was already a connection with Roddenberry at that, to that point. When Star Trek, goes into little bit of reruns in certain markets. It didn't hit here until after the cartoon had run. But they started doing major, hey, this is taking off here. This is a big thing. And NBC was like, okay, well, all right, maybe we goofed. Can we bring it back? Well, the sets had already been struck and distributed, and UCLA got some things and other things, and the cast is all out doing other things now. But there's saying, hey, what about, this cartoon idea of Filmation? Okay, well, let's come back to that. And by this time around, Mary's saying, no kids on the ship. If we're doing it, we're doing it. It's not going to be a kiddie Star Trek. It's going to be Star Trek in animated form. Because we got scripts that we had purchased in anticipation that we got a fourth season. So we got some of those. And also, at the time, there was a writer's strike going on. And same rules applied then as applied now, is that animation is not included in what you can and can't work for. So that's how they got a lot of original series writers to contribute scripts to the Star Trek cartoon game, because they could do it without necessarily breaking the strike. And they got, and again, voice actor. Only once or twice did they had them all together in the room. A lot of times it was like they're recording the lines separately. Shatner, a lot of times, was doing his lines into a tape recorder in between takes on what he was doing at the time, usually Barbary Coast. It's like, but, okay, take 5, and he's in his trailer recording his lines for a Star Trek thing. Things like that. And, of course, the cast is all for it because, hey, they're getting paid. They're making money here. It's not just having to go to a convention. But it shows, okay, well, all right, we got a market. It's a test thing. There is a viable market out there. So it kept, and Roddenberry's right, it kept the thing alive. It showed, yes, there's interest here. And yeah, a lot of things, always keeping in mind on bringing this whole thing back in live action when the time is right and when that one's available. And that first season, like 16 episodes. Second season is like 6. That's why I do not consider fourth and fifth season of original series. I consider it just a fourth because there's only 22 episodes total. So that's there, and that's why I will throw Star Trek Continues as the fifth season, because that it fills the thing. Like we need, the goal was finish up the 5-year mission, get everyone where they were at the beginning of the motion picture. Find out why Spock went back to Vulcan, what happened to McCoy, when the uniforms come in, and why they refit the Enterprise so heavily. But they got the cartoon. It was a hit. It got its first Emmy for not one of the Geek Awards. It wasn't a technical thing. I think they had gotten stuff earlier for technical achievements or whatever, but this is the first one. It's like best children's programming. And I think there was a comment, like the animated Star Trek show is like a Mercedes and a soapbox derby. But at that point, okay, we did it. So now the talks start to do it for real on live action. And that's when you start, Barry Diller as head of Paramount by this point. He wants to do a fourth network. And he sees Star Trek as a good anchor show for, flagship show for starting it off. And so that's when you start in phase 2. And also just talking, occasionally it's bounce back between a new TV series or a low budget feature film
than a medium budget feature film or than a TV movie, and just bouncing back and forth there. But during this time, they've got pretty much all the cast except for Nimoy signed up, and they're in pay and play contracts here, so they're getting paid whether anything happens or not. And they're finally settled on Phase, new series network. This is where Star Trek Phase 2 comes in, and they're buying scripts, they're building sets, doing Tice is pulling costumes out of storage because they had original series costumes, and also creating a few others and playing a few concepts of variations on it. Because then this story only takes place like 3 years after the original series wraps up, after the 5-year mission. But they're flying around, and it's like there's having problems getting stations signed up to be part of this new Paramount network. So it's looking like we don't, this isn't going to work, too. But they don't tell the people working on Star Trek yet. There's like, we want to do something here. But they also can't publicly announce that, okay, never mind this network, because then everyone's going to hold it over our heads. Oh, Mr. High and Mighty want to do a new network, and now you want to sell us a show? Really now? It's like, so they had to keep up a brave front here. But they get the thing, and the script for what was going to be, I hate to call it a pilot, because really the show was already sold. A pilot is what you do to sell a show. It was going to be just the first episode. That's really the better term for it. So the thing, In Thy Image, it was bounced off of a story idea, I think was for Genesis 2, called Robot's Return, where an Earth probe comes back as been advancing and all that. And the script shows up, and Michael Eisner, then head of Paramount, I guess Barry Diller was kind of, you go do something. Well, Michael Eisner's in charge, and slams up. We've been looking for trying to do a Star Trek movie. This is the script. And it's like, okay, fine. So now it's like, okay, we're doing a movie then. Because around this time, well, actually, it was just before Star Wars hit. Because Star Wars hit, and they figured, well, shit, we just lost our shot. So they're about ready to pull the plug out then. Okay, no, but then Close Encounters hit. And did just about as well as Star Wars. People forget all that. Because at that point, it's like, the attitude was that fans of this type of thing will only go see like one movie a year. That sort of thing. But it's the fact that you had 2 movies making just as much money, and the same audience people come back over, and it's, they'll come, okay, we're back on. And so, get back on, and now it's a mad dash to get this thing filmed. And then you got all the rewrites and the thing. They started filming before they even had a finished script. That D. Kelly was on Tomorrow. They're talking about the upcoming thing. Roddenberry's supposed to be there, but I think he was sick or something. But he sent a note to D, said, okay, we've got a start date. We don't have a script yet, but hell, a lot of people have scripts and don't have a start date. So, but they went out, they're filming. They're trying to figure out, what to do with the last film, with the last act. But I think we're going to leave it there, because I'm going to do a separate one on the movies. But that's the state of Star Trek at the point of where they wrapped up after the series, and after the series and how they get to, okay, now we're going to make a movie. So, we'll continue on with part 2, and we'll talk at you later. Okay, let's get it back online here. Video's over. So let's get back in this here. Hey, I think after I'm wrapping this up, I'm going to go ahead and do that sort of final chapter, or at least to this point. Going over JJ Trek, Encouragement Trek, and the crap that is happening. And a little tease. I'm back to the stream. God, pay attention. And get back to, okay, then hopefully a few hints of what lays ahead of us. What is the future of Star Trek at this point? So let's go ahead and get the game back in here. Let's switch it over to Wolverine here. So let me just wrap up something here.
Just wrap up a game. I got my phone going here while I was doing this. Okay, come on. Okay, that takes care of that. So, all right. Back in here. All right. Anybody come on? We want to annoy here? Not really. Okay. So let's okay. One more look at here. We gotta level up 2 times to get this little guy again. And we're a ways away from the next one. Actually, I think we'll just probably do one more. Call it at that point. Let me just wrap up this game here. All right. Let's see. Pick a spot where to drop here. Okay. Where are we? Milestones. Yeah, 3 more times. I think of the bus driver. Wrap that up. And then eliminate players, outlast players. That's all we got for the milestones left. So there we're done. Well on the way. Stupid thing now. All right. Bugs. All right, come on. Come on. Stupid things run too long. Clear this out. All right. Okay, call that there. Okay, so let's do one more just for the sake of actually ending on a game and not another video. You know? But yeah, I think we're gonna finally take a stab at that getting the JJ segment done. All right. Let's just get down here. No, let's go down here. Peninsula Heights. Huh? Scarf down some. Yeah. Why the steamed hams all look like Krusty Burgers? I don't know, but ours is not to wonder why. I don't know why I picked up that bottle. At this point, it fills a slot. So, anything back? It's always good when you get down somewhere and no one else is there. Okay. There we go. Couple of rare ones. Let's see. Actually, let's sling it out there. This point, gotta go. No, run. Nope, that's it. Go. Right. And Mr. Burns. Right now, I'm ordering just to find a vehicle. You'd think Burns would have a car or two, but no. swift current. Come on. Yeah, that I think is a legitimate complaint. You know, all these things require enter a vehicle. Well, you need more vehicles, okay? Oh, guess I'm full up on. Yeah. I'm not going to get to a vehicle in time. Oh well, that happens. Has everyone forgotten that, you know, buses, you know, usually have stuff? All right. I got the wrong damn shotgun. Shit. Give me that back. How about that? Okay. Okay, I'm seeing muzzle flashes. Again, I'm jumping out of the type, you know, run to the sound of the gunfire, kill as many as you can. No. It's a battle royale, but it doesn't require you to kill everybody yourself, okay? No. Shit. Okay. And we're okay. We're in town. Whoa, shit. Motherfucker. Get in there. motherfucker. Bitch. All right. Yeah, I think we'll probably just call it there after over 2 hours. So that's enough. You know. All right. Okay, so moved a little closer, but at this point, I don't think I want to belabor the point anymore. So better to set up tomorrow so we get the dailies again. So let's just call it there. Actually, upon reflection, I think I'll do the next segment of History of Star Trek tomorrow. It's a little late starting production, but I'm definitely going to get that going tomorrow and get that up there because I need more Star Trek content, and I can't wait for Rosetta just for a stream. I got to get this thing up and get back on top of that. I've started so many different ideas for series and fallen apart. I need to get back on this. So with that, we'll talk at you later, guys.